I just was about to ask, but then you were already gone. I saw you play Dark Dungeon on your live stream.
Yeah, a viewer gave it, like, donated it, and so I thought, oh, all right, I'll give it a try. It felt like a little XCOM-y, and like, oh crap, everything's against me, and I don't know what I'm doing.
I just saw it on a podcast where they talked about it, and it's the guy who makes the voiceovers for the game. He also makes audiobooks from H.P. Lovecraft.
That seems
Oh,
appropriate.
yeah, I'm a huge Lovecraft fan.
Then you like Darkest Dungeon, probably.
No, I haven't really played it, but once again, probably because, yeah, I would be trying to save Scum, and apparently that game auto saves like a madman to keep you from doing that.
You can't save people. They're gonna die.
Or at the very least become, you know, afflicted with something that will eventually kill them and maybe the ones around them.
Mm-hmm.
It was on my desired list, and I enjoyed the first hour or so. I guess enjoyed as there's elements of enjoyment. Usually enjoy things more when you understand them, and they had no tutorial really. But besides that, I'm looking forward to playing it some more for sure.
Have you looked at Sunless Sea any?
That's installed. I've looked at it enough to know that I wanted it, but I haven't played it yet. No.
When I got that game, I played it straight for like 12 to 13 hours. I barely left to do anything else.
I would get in real trouble if I did that. So.
Yeah. I mean, I was unemployed at the time, so it seems more natural with that in context. But yeah.
That looks real good, and I've got your recommendations in mind already. When we play that.
Yeah, if you ever want to play it on a stream or anything, I'd love to chat with you as you do it, because there's a whole lot of interesting shit in that game. And the whole randomization of the map, that system is very interesting, because the shoreline is always the same, but the islands are always randomized, and in various sections are randomized internally, so to speak. So if you can know that, well, within this distance from Fallen London, I might encounter one of these, but you never know which one is where, unless you have picked a certain, well, unlocked a, because it is a roguelike or whatever the term is. So you can unlock certain things that will carry on over to the next session, but you have to earn them. You have to work pretty damn hard. If you manage to buy yourself a house, buy a proper house and estate, and then you can like save relics that you can then let your next generation sell off to have some starting cash. But you have to make sure that you actually make a will, or you will before you die. If you don't, you lose the house and everything. And making the will cost a bit of cash.
I haven't played any games where I have to make a will.
Well, you don't make it, but you just sort of go to a law firm and say, I need a will to make sure my next in kin gets everything.
Yeah, I personally had a bit of a problem with a random island, because it's like the third or fourth mission, go to that and that place, and I played like 3 hours and haven't found the island. And if
Yeah.
and it's the one where you get back and haven't found it, they don't let you in anymore, or they're really mad. They try to kill you.
I've been very tempted to try and like form a D&D setting out of that world, but it would be so hard to. There's so many things you'd have to take into account, and combat encounters. Well, there sure would be combat encounters, but I'm not sure how many you could put in, depending on what you do, of course. But yeah, that's a setting where I would love to have a D&D setting made up.
Is it seem like post-apocalyptic, or what is it?
Actually, it's quite interesting. The universe is based on a browser-based game called Fallen London, and it's a very esoteric. It's kind of an esoteric story. Basically, some sort of aliens of some kind came down and literally stole London and put it miles underground in a giant grotto. And for some reason that is vaguely explained. If you want to read into it, you can find the explanation, but that would sort of spoil it a bit.
Okay.
And I mean, and these aliens are essentially in control, more or less in control of the city. They are known as the Masters. And yeah, you work under their watch, under their eye, so to speak. And they have some weird rules, but and certain things are considered contraband that you wouldn't think of as contraband, like love stories, for example.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and another very interesting element to this game is the fact that information is considered can be used as like the same way like you would use loot in other games. Like you can sell it off to the right buyer and such, and you can gather like secrets and use them as a currency to level up, so to speak.
Fun.
Yeah, I love how it's a game that really messes with the set dressing, so to speak. Like things aren't named what you're used to them being. They're like I can't remember what the exact name for the like stealth skill is, but it's not quite just the word stealth. It involves different things. It's like stealth, but it's not quite the exact definition. So everything is slightly off.
It's like shades and square. It's like
shades.
Sound a bit like cards. A bit to me.
Yeah, shades is what they call your like stealthiness level, your skill, and so on.
Now, are you on the boat the whole time, or do you get off the boat and do stuff?
You get off the boat and you go and do things on islands, and this is text-based, and you make selections on what to do and how to handle the events going on, and you make a report of what's going on the island, and then you can bring that report back to London and bring it to the Admiralty, and they'll pay you for the information. So if you don't have any like trade routes or specific missions you're doing, you can just go exploring, or you can just go to all the islands you've already been and gather port reports. And I have a few favorite islands, but I'm not going to spoil too much. But there's one island that is called the Island of Masks, if I remember correctly. And before you leave the dock, so to speak, you have to pick a mask. Everyone on this island is wearing a mask. And depending on which mask you are wearing, the locals will have different expectations of you. And if you act according to your mask, people will be like, well, he's just doing what he's supposed to. And if you don't, people are like, you're breaking the rules, get off the island. Which means that if you pick the right mask, you can literally essentially go up and rob a wishing well dry, and everybody's like, well, whatever. And if you're wearing the wrong one, they'll kick you out for doing something that seems inexplicably peaceful. Oh yeah, and there's one mask where nobody knows the exact rules for that mask. The only rule they know is that if you pick it, you'll die.
Automatic.
Yeah.
But dying is a big thing in this game where you're out of food. How about you eat one of your crew members?
Yeah, that's an element as well.
Man, just a slew of brutal games that don't let me just win and feel heroic.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, about that.
It's a really great story, so if you like story-based games, this is your thing.
Yeah, I watched your stream, the whole thing, the 50,000 one, and the whole talk you had about paladins, and like why you like them so much. Personally, I'm of the opinion that I can understand the appeal of the paladin, but personally I feel like the basic impression I get of the paladin is someone who has had the opportunities from the start and chose a good path. What appeals to me more sort of is the person who didn't necessarily have the choice, didn't necessarily end up in a good position but still choose to do good. Like the idea of, for example, a warlock that that in spite of the dark nature of their abilities, they will still try to be of a good alignment. That's more my style, because I feel that the one that hasn't really gotten the opportunity, or the one that might be misunderstood or looked down upon, but god damn it, they're still trying. That's my preference.
I wonder just how much it has to do with our own personalities and.
Oh, everything, I'm sure. Everything, I'm sure. I mean, that just. I could go very personal, but this is a public chat, and I'm not sure I'm going to do that. But I absolutely understand that my personal preference is definitely based on my personal life and history. Which is not to say that I've done anything criminal, nothing like that.
That's what he says now.
You'll never find out.
There's part of the appeal of being distant from the fantasy of reality, of playing something so very different than you are. And there's also the desire of playing something that you wish you could be for real, but you can only manifest sort of parts of it.
Yeah, I've tried to RP characters that I've felt like I want. Like there's been RPG games and such where I'm trying to play an evil character. I want to play an evil character, but I can't quite force myself to do that choice. Sometimes I just can't go full. I like in Mass Effect. I could never go full renegade.
I have a real hard time even wanting to do the evil path or the wrong, quote, wrong path. It doesn't interest me. It doesn't seem like a satisfying victory to have done it, just screwing over so many people.
Yeah, I mean, I can understand the appeal of like making a character choice that is essentially selfish, but that doesn't necessarily. As long as that doesn't necessarily mean messing someone else over, I'll gladly pick it. If it's like, oh, you either do a good service for everyone, or you do something for yourself, I might be inclined to pick the one that does things for myself. If the character I'm playing is so inclined. If, however, the choice is you either do something for yourself, or everyone gets into trouble. No way, never.
Yeah, it's the idea of ruining other people's fun for the sake of me role playing authentically.
Yeah, and I'm talking even in certain like single player RPG, I can have a hard time with those choices.
Me too.
Yeah, I have a friend who's really he likes to role play these kinds of characters where he say I'm gonna play this role even if it gets us killed. And it was a one shot that he played, and he was some kind of elven prince who was like, "Oh, you don't know who I am? The bow before me, and if you don't, I kill you." And at the end, he killed like 2 innocents, and they got beaten up by the guard.
You can see the moments of like a one shot to act out there, but if you're going to commit, and people are going to commit for a long running campaign, or they invest their time and effort to make such a character, and then to have that just ruined so quickly by someone who just doesn't get it, doesn't want to be participating with other people, it's just I can't see the enjoyment there.
I mean, there are a few aspects to this. There are the players who just want to do their own vision. There are the ones who, and doesn't care what anyone else wants. There are the players who. There are, of course, the good players who want to do everything well, but might not always might not always act with forethought or such. And then there are the players who just can't take anything like this, any sort of tabletop game or anything like that seriously enough to actually, commit to it and act like they would as the character. I think you probably know what I'm talking about. The people who, the kind of people who would, in let's say in a MOBA chat, just wind people up simply because they can and because they somehow sort of think it's just a game, not real, and can't realize the fact that the other person can't consider it just a game, and that's why they're raging at you.
And I think I know I'm guilty of it on those the MOBAs and stuff. Of why are you so angry? Why are you blaming everybody? Why is this? Because to them, this is serious business. This is their identity is woven up into this, of being good at it, of having. I don't even realize that some people will. I'm messing up their ladder stats, and they talk about that with their high school friends or whatever it is, and they compare it. And I was in the solo queue yesterday, and this idiot kept dying, and that idiot being me. I don't even think about it at all, but they'll spend their hours feeling so frustrated or investing so much into it.
I mean, when you're playing ranked, people will always put expectations on you that you don't necessarily have on yourself. But I feel like there's way too many people in just casual games, and I'm talking MOBAs in general here, but also other multiplayer games as well, of course. But MOBAs seem to be one of the core genres for this.
They get real serious business.
Yeah.
I feel the same about a tabletop game. In many cases, I would be disappointed. I would be irritated if someone showed at the table and just was making pop culture jokes the whole time and not bothering to do any role playing or work together or anything like that. That'd be hard for me.
That's actually an interesting comparison when you think about it. It's all about what you consider serious business.
Mm-hmm. Why it's so important to group and talk about what you consider serious business as a group, and then come to the conclusion of I'll get what I want because everyone's taking this at least as seriously as I am, or thank God everybody is kind of on board with the playing more casual, having a little more fun with it. Have all those different minded people in the same place, they're gonna have a bad time. Gonna have a bad time. It's hard to even know, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes you're new to the gaming. What is my actual preference? And do I really have the most fun?
Yeah, I mean, in my experience, especially when it comes to MOBAs, is that I want to be good at certain roles. We're taking just MOBAs as an example here, but I'd like to be good at certain roles, but in the end, I find it hard to when I do something and I feel that I do it good. Well, when I do something, to be able to feel that I did it good, when I don't have a frame of reference for a new role, I need someone to tell me that. And it's mostly only in the support role in a duo lane where that communication will actually happen. If you do something good as a support, if you get your ADC 2 kills in the first 2 minutes of a game, they'll cheer your name, and that's when I can know, yes, I did something good. I've wanted to be good at top lane and jungle in League before, but I always feel like, well, I did something, but was it good? Was it average? I don't know. I just feel like it might have been below average. And the thought pattern just goes that way every time.
I find, since I do watch League of Legends every now and then, it's on Saturday and Sunday. I'm usually busy then. I can catch it good. Making that comparison of, all right, well, at 20 minutes in the game, I should have 400 CS because that's what they do. Can I get close to that? Not even remotely close. I have something, a target to shoot for, I guess.
Nah, I mean, like back when I tried to get into Dota 2, I was like, okay, they have a tutorial mode. I'm just gonna play the mode where you try to CS on your own. There's no enemies. You just try to get CS as much as possible, and I'm just gonna keep trying this until I feel that I've got a grasp on it.
And Dota 2
And
is
maybe,
hardcore. And
yeah, and like 3 hours later, I was like, I'm not sure I'm ever gonna get into Dota.
well, I have my Steam's account says now that I have around 300 hours in this game, and I'm still like, I have no idea what I'm doing.
Yeah, that's about my experience. Oh, not even that much. Just play through the tutorial, sounded good, and then I play on like with other people, and it just feels like, oh, I'm just ruining your experience, aren't I? You have very high expectations for this Dota business.
Yeah, every time you go into a match, there's someone around who expects you to be aiming for platinum tier.
Yeah, and tutorial match also.
Yeah, and the tutorial is not made to make you expect to reach platinum tier for good reason.
I
Go ahead.
I turned away from playing online for a while, playing anything online, because I just was tired of having to live up to expectations or deal with people who are worse. Like on both, there's some games that I'm very good at that are online, and it can be frustrating the other way of, come on, like I've invested all this time and effort into this experience in this game, and you're barely even paying attention.
Yeah, I mean that's one of the reasons why I love Smite, the MOBA game. I really do, but I mostly play the assault mode, the clash mode, and the arena mode, because while there are still some people who go crazy when you do something they disagree with, it's like, whatever, it's an all random. I didn't pick this god. You deal with it.
Mm.
It's another thing when it's like, you're going into a conquest, or what we in League would call Summoner's Rift, and and suddenly everyone is starting to look at the map and thinking, oh, that's where that big play on that big esports event happened. I'm going to try and live up to these expectations, even though I don't acknowledge that fact to myself.
Yeah, the only reasons why
And I
every
expect
year
everyone else to do the same.
no, the only
Even
reasons
though
why
I haven't stated such before.
why I ever come back to LoL is once a year or for a week or two they bring back their Earth mode, where it's all like ultra rapid fire, where 90% cooldown on all your spells, and it's just clusterfuck. I don't like LoL, even though I've like 2,000 matches.
Honestly, I'm not that comfortable with any of the. I mean, I love Smite, but that's largely because of the difference in perspective. In the other MOBAs, you always have this overhead perspective, whilst in Smite you have the third person, and that just feels so much more natural to me. I don't feel in other modes. I feel in Smite I feel like I'm actually controlling the character. In League or Dota, I feel like I'm the guy holding the remote, trying to control the RC card and drive it through the maze, but you just can't get it right, and you're like, which direction should I turn to make the car turn that way when it's stuck towards that wall, and you just feel like you don't have a very firm I just feel like I don't have a very firm grasp on how things are going. Or well, how to make things go better. We were supposed to talk about tabletop, weren't we?
Nope. Supposed to talk about whatever you want.
Oh, all right.
And I am downloading Smite. Maybe I'll give it a...
Well, we might be on different time zones, but if you want to play a game, I'll be up for it at some point. And I mean, as I said, you can just play the assault mode where you just get a random god and you see how you do. And and you're always excused with I didn't pick this god, whatever.
One of the things about League that I was always having trouble with was how do you... I guess some people do expect that you would go to against computers and play that to practice a character that you don't know. But that just sounds so kind of boring because the computers are really, really, really easy.
Yeah, that's what my friends say. You should not do that because you will end up expecting enemies to do really stupid things that they won't.
Right.
They say that's like telling someone to go punch a bag and then punch a punching bag and then go say, right, you can get into the ring with Muhammad Ali now.
At the same time, if you're supposed to play them in, if I'm no good with Fiora, I would not. How would I ever get good by playing them?
Yeah, and that's in my opinion, that's what in Smite, that's what the arena mode is for, because then it's just 5v5. There's no there's no significant amount of laning. You're just sort of having group fights continuously, and it's actually pretty good practice for how to handle combat interactions between groups of gods and groups of players, because you get you get all group fights more or less continuously through that game, and as such, while you might still need practice for the laning phase if you're going to go into the conquest mode or Summoner's Rift, as they'd call it in League, then you at least know how to handle yourself in a fight if you get invaded, or no, not if you get is the word invaded? I forget. Well, if someone gank, that's the word. If someone tries to jump in and gank, you at least know the basics of what the gods do and what you should be doing about it.
Another thought coming to mind: there's just so many games.
Yeah, that's true. There
shows.
Yeah.
So many games and not enough time.
Yeah. As a kid, it was like, oh, I got a game. Let's play this for hours and hours and days and weeks and years. And let's idolize everything about it, even though it's in retrospect it's gonna look like shit. It's like, I mean, I loved Mario 64. I essentially worshipped that game as a kid. Looking back on it, though, it's blocky as all hell. And while at the time I had become a master of handling the camera in that game, compared to any modern game, it's like trying to wrestle a fucking walrus while you're playing.
Yeah, the nostalgia value, the initial value, the first experience kind of thing can all really skew a view of something. So
yeah, and
people are still playing.
Yeah, and the fact that we actually did have such a limited amount of games meant that we were also willing to push through things that we're not willing to accept anymore. I've gotten several games that I bought on sales or on humble bundles, and I've tried them and I've been like, well, I don't like this element of the game, so I'm just not going to bother. And then you move on to something else.
Other games on Steam I can switch any second.
Yeah, exactly. You're not for better and for worse. You are no longer as invested in a single game usually as you are in others. I mean, if you've played a lot of a free-to-play game and you've unlocked a lot of stuff, or if you've played on a MOBA for years and years, then you get the sense of dedication towards it, and as such you will be willing to defend it, whatever its flaws. But there's sorry. There is still that element of an individual game, and the possession of such is no longer. It's no longer a what's the word I'm looking for? It's no longer such a finite resource. You know, supply and demand and all that.
Greetings, the other
I'll
two
jump
coming in.
for a moment and say
Yeah.
hi. Hi, guys.
Hi.
Hello, hello. We're
Sorry
complaining
that I didn't
about
have a
how many
camera.
games we have to play.
Oh, yeah, I can relate.
We're first world problems this entire thing now.
I only
Or
have
the man version of I don't have anything. I don't have any clothes to wear.
Well, I only need one game, so that's easy to decide then.
Yeah, I mean, I recently bought Dragon's Dogma and Dark Souls 2, the Scholar Edition, and I've not had time to play them since college started back up. So I've been wanting to get them for like years now, but it's like, oh no, priorities.
At least you're making the priorities, though. Some people see the games as the priorities and fail the college. I'll be doing the right thing.
See, I've been telling myself that I'm gonna get into and really dig deep into the Stalker series, or Stalker, if you will.
It's Stalker.
Yeah. But yeah, that game is hard. It's like I remember at one point I was trying in one of them, and I had a sort of shotgun. No, it was not a sort of. It was a regular one. I somehow managed to sneak behind someone and put a slug, not a shell, a slug, into the tip of their spine. And all this motherfucker did was turn around and cap me in the head.
Oh my god.
This game hates you.
Oh Jesus. That's
Admittedly, that wasn't exactly the highest quality or highest durability shotgun, but still, it's a slug. His spine should have been coming out of his chest.
It doesn't matter.
I know, it all
Game
matters.
full of random critters, random mutated animals that will bite your ass off before you can say, "Oh shit."
When I have this thing where I just started playing Bloodborne and says, "Hey, look, there's a pig." Oh,
Oh
I'm dead.
no.
This doesn't look too bad. Oh, it's worse.
Never
love this
underestimate
game.
pigs. They are fierce animals.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I like how From actively went out of its way in order to mock the people who played Dark Souls PvP. Like, no spoilers, but there's certain enemies in the dungeons that you get, and they're fat, stocky things that are like really overbuilt, and they fat roll.
I've met these guys. They are my nightmare. Oh, he is big and fat. He doesn't do much. 3 seconds
It's like-
later, I was dead.
Yeah, they actively tried to flank you. It's great.
I haven't personally played any of the Dark Souls games or Demon Souls or whatnot. They looked. I don't have a console anymore, so that's probably a big hindrance. But they looked really. I liked the idea, I think, but now that I've actually been playing very hard games, maybe I wouldn't enjoy dying thousands of times
See,
in order to just get the right precise sad turn thing combo to pull it off.
yeah.
Well-
See, the thing about me in the Souls games and such is that I love fighting smaller enemies. I love figuring out like the path and trying to deal with groups and figuring out the openings and such. And then you get to a boss, and then I give up.
See, the genius thing about Souls is that it once you get into it, it's not exactly hard. It just doesn't hold your hand all that much. But like as an experienced Souls player, I'm finding moving from Dark Souls to Dark Souls 2 a little iffy because Dark Souls 2 is a little bit smoother, a little bit less clunky. But when you play it for a bit, it sort of gets, oh, yeah, you can expect this sort of thing. It's when they actively try to what's the word?
Basically, you've swapped from a tractor to a Volvo, and you're trying to get a handle on the new
Yeah.
smoother
I
technique.
wouldn't say tractor. I would more say like you from a tank to something else.
Yeah. Like you go from tank to Ferrari, and it's like, oh.
I can handle these types of games like only in small spurts. That's why I don't play them too much. Like I rather prefer to just jump into something like Miami Hotline for 20
Oh,
minutes or something
that's
like
also
that.
great, but also frustrating as hell.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
well, because you can play it 20 minutes and it's alright then.
Just
You
a level.
Tier 1 level and then it's enough.
It's not like Dark Souls. I haven't found a bonfire in like 2 hours. I want to get home.
Speaking about what you said earlier, Andrew, about finding games where you want to feel like you're succeeding, have you ever tried One Finger Death Punch?
I have.
Yeah,
That's fun.
that's my podcast game where I just listen. And the interesting thing about me in that game is that I find myself doing better the less I focus on it. Like, as long as I need to have it in vision, but as long as I'm listening and thinking about what I'm listening to, I just keep doing better and better. It's when I go, damn it, I'm not doing too well, or I think, oh, I just need to deal with these other 10 left remaining. That's when I fuck up.
It's kind of like that feeling when, like when you actively think to yourself, "Oh, I am now breathing manually," and you start like actively trying to breathe.
Yeah, it's like when someone says it's tongue and breath awareness day, and you suddenly hate them.
Yeah.
I've been in the lookout for, and I haven't found it. I definitely like the appeal of the games where I can feel like I've accomplished something in 30, 45 minutes, maybe an hour, play, then stop. But something that is slow enough pace that I can do while editing, so that my turn is not, or the game's like not demanding my attention. I can go back, give it attention, come back to the other thing. Know any games like that?
If you want a game that's just all sunshine, happiness, and rainbow, try Slime Rancher.
Which one?
Slime Rancher. Basically, it's a game where you build up a farm, you gather slimes of various types, you feed them stuff. Let's not mince words. They shit out something called a plort. You sell it on the market, and you make money to buy better farming equipment. And depending on what kind of a slime it is, they will give you better stuff. And this is the kind of game where it is in development, so there isn't too much to it yet. But there's more stuff coming, and it's the kind of game where you can just sit around dawdling about, and there's no real rush or danger. The worst thing that can happen is that you get delayed for a while. Sorry, what did you say?
Sorry, I just want to say, but it still requires your attention, because if you're like 5 minutes, you're taking your mind off it, then your slimes start producing and reproducing and trying to run away and whatever.
They don't actually reproduce, but they do. But they do start working together to try and break out of the cages when more and more of them are dissatisfied. So yeah, it is the kind of game where you can't tab out for too long unless you pause it by entering the options menu. I myself have on occasion tabbed out of it and forgotten about it for 2 hours. And when I got back, if there was such a thing as the place being lit on fire, that would be the state I would describe it as. But in the end, all it really meant was that many of my slimes had broken out. Not all of them, because I had security measures, and all my farms and fruit trees had had died out.
Well, I would recommend. I don't know. It's kind of an older game. The Banner Saga,
Banner Saga, yes, I heard about it.
Oh, yeah, that one.
and it's turn-based, so you can always just if you're doing something else along, just on your side, you can always just check out. But it's still quite challenging, and I think the story and the characters are quite interesting. So, and the world it's set in is quite cool. It's about a caravan of human people, Vikings, and bonding together with giants to try to survive an attack of some mysterious old enemy. And it's really. I also like the art style because it looks all comic style and drawn, like hand drawn.
Yeah, I have that. I haven't actually really played it all that much either.
Okay.
That might be, yeah, a good option.
A game that I've played a fair bit, but it's a bit more tricky to tab out of, is King of Dragon Pass. It's available. I don't know how many of you use GOG, but it's a game where you're managing your own like Viking-esque clan, and you're trying to raise your wealth, raise your status, and all that, and try and become leader, try and bring the other clans together into an empire led by you.
A quick question: what is GOG?
Goodoldgames.com, GOG.com. It's a website where they take really old games and they make them work on modern systems.
Okay.
So they have like all kinds of games that you thought you would never be able to actually get running on anything not from like 1995. And the prices are actually they actually have very good prices and services. I'm a big fan of GOG in general. They are also big fans of like DRM free, so you can essentially buy and download any game from them, and you'll never have to go online or check anything ever again. It's yours. You've got it.
See, I heard GOG.com was, I think, owned by CD Projekt Red, the guys behind The Witcher, and I've heard they're really big fans of DRM-free.
Yeah, the Witcher games are on there, and they're often quite high on the like recommended lists and stuff. But yeah,
What a
that's the
coincidence!
nature. Yeah, but I mean, I can't blame them for that. I mean, it's not like they have the position to be impartial about it.
Yeah.
And it's not like Steam doesn't promote Valve games.
No, they don't do that. No.
No, not at all. Valve didn't even make it.
There's never been any sale for, Portal, Half-Life.
No.
No, and I mean that they wouldn't make TF2 free to play on the platform. No, sir.
No, they're too modest. They wouldn't do that.
Yeah, they're too restrained. They're too tight. They have meager incomes. They need to consider the bottom line.
See, I'm a bit of a casual. Whenever I need to work on something, but I also want to put my attention to something in the meantime, I just play Cookie Clicker, and it's drawn me in more than once.
Tricky Clicker?
Cookie Clicker.
Cookie.
Basically, all you do is click, and a counter of cookies rises, and that's all you do, more or less, with various visual elements.
Yeah, kind of like that, but then it's also more complex than it looks, and because it's more complex than it looks, it's really addictive.
But in the end, what you're doing is clicking and raising the amount of cookies.
Don't look at it, Andrew. Don't. No. Don't.
I don't know if this is true, so don't quote me on this. You may want to research this first. But I heard at some point that might just be a rumor, but that the original creator of Cookie Clicker, it might not be Cookie Clicker, might be a similar one, but that what they were actually doing was that while that page was running, they were using processing power of your computer to like handle their server pressure on something else. So they like saved money by using this browser-based game to pull processing power from people's computers.
Wow.
And thus they actually managed to make significant amounts of money until someone figured it out.
Not gonna lie, that's pretty genius if underhanded.
It is. I mean, they might actually have even been using the processing power to generate Bitcoin or something. I don't remember.
I don't get you. Just click the cookie.
Yes.
Oh yeah, you click the cookie, but the end game you don't even need to click.
It just, does it for itself because, the game needed less gameplay. It was too complex to begin with.
Well, the game's more complex because it's added elements of New Game Plus to it, and in which case you generate more cookies.
Wow.
Which
New Game Plus, because that's what we needed in freaking Cookie Clicker.
yeah.
And the better you
Wait a minute, New Game Plus. Is there an actual end game to Cookie Clicker?
There kind of is and kind of isn't. There's a point where it stops, but you have the option to go on and do better next time. It's insane.
How does this not give people carpal tunnel? Like, they should have advertisements.
Oh, it does. It does.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Every time we go.
Don't get too invested, Andrew. Don't.
No, but I got all the achievements. They're popping
It's
up.
already too late. We lost him.
Cookies per second.
Tomorrow, the Forge Cache is closing down, and the Cookie Cast is starting up.
Cookie forged.
Cookie forged. Right. Oops. Everyone
Whoa.
join me.
See infinity.
This is what we are going to be doing from now on.
Oh no.
It has started.
Grandma said moist cookies. Let's roleplay Grandma.
We have started.
You're playing too much of these old video games. Time to bake some cookies.
Ah,
This is the end.
massive immersion.
Finally, friend, the end.
Game saved. Oh, good. I can come back.
Yeah, what you want to do is you want to invest in grandmas. Grandmas are the best thing to invest in the early game.
That sounds kind of sexual.
This can't be taken off.
Friend,
Oh, carpal tunnel prevention cream. There we go.
come to talk with you again. Because a vision softly
Oh,
creeping
cookie points.
left its deeds while I was sleeping.
Look, I got another achievement.
Yay.
I was planted in my brain.
I'm kidding.
Never saw Andrew again.
Oh, jeez.
Andrew became a cookie.
He was born a cookie.
I'll die.
Molded by it.
Oh god.
Ooh, now it's +4 cookies per click.
Yeah. Stop it. The last chance to get back. Once you're in the game, you become the game.
Yeah, at first I couldn't take it seriously, but when all the achievements and stuff started popping up, I figured I wonder how far we can go, and then I realized I went too far.
You don't want to go too far. You
You're
don't want
chasing
to
the
go around
cookie
that rabbit
dragon.
hole.
What do the grandmas do anyway?
Oh, grandmas are
Why are we still talking about this?
mechanically I forget what they do, but they're very good once you put bonuses on them, and they produce a lot more cookies than your mice or other upgrades can, and in the late game.
And in the late game, you have hive mind grandmas.
Oh yeah, and they become like some Lovecraftian horror.
Like every grandparent.
Yeah.
This is every entrepreneur's dream: is the work starts to do itself, and I don't have to be involved. I worked hard enough. Now that I have automatic cookie clickers.
Look, Andrew. That's the reason why there's a game that based itself on this called Adventure Capitalist. It's essentially the same game, but it's all about like venture capitalism, supposedly.
Now that sounds interesting.
Oh God, did I just put you in a bad spot?
Venture capitalist, Google.
Adventure Capitalist.
Ah, I saw this on
It's on
Steam.
Steam.
Oh, boy.
It's unfortunately free to play.
To the internet.
I'm closing. I had to close it. Okay, I closed it.
Thank you.
Well, it plays itself now, so
Yeah,
can come back later.
I am
browser
guilty.
games.
Yeah, Cookie Clicker was responsible for ruining my hard drive, which resulted in it needing to be reformatted. Because I wanted to collect vast amounts of cookies and buy bonuses the next day, so I just left the PC on running while it was collecting cookies, and eventually my PC just couldn't take it anymore.
Too much cookies.
Oh dear.
I remember doing that with some of the Super Nintendo games where you put a rubber band around your controller for a certain button, and then you get to generate in a certain place in a certain game. You just keep investing into the casino or whatever it was.
Yeah.
Here's some advice for all you fans of Fallout 1 and 2. Well, especially Fallout 1 because they didn't put in safeguards against this in the first one. But what you do is you start off with a character with high luck and proficiency in gambling. Then you go to the gambling hall, and then you go in front of either a gambling table or in front of a machine. The tables are usually the most payoff. And then you find some way to weigh down the number key of the bet you wish to play, and then you leave the game on until tomorrow, and you'll have more money than you'll ever fucking need, because once you have gambling higher than 50%, you will win more than half of the time.
Oh wow.
So as long as you have some level of starting capital, and you just keep going for a little while until you have, I don't know, 1,000 or something, and then you just save it and leave it, and then you can come back in the morning. Thing is, in the second game, in the Fallout 2, they added protection against this by making it so that the gambling tables closed down when they had lost too much money, and they made it so that the slot machines would break after a while if you used them too much.
And that's a pretty genius system, I gotta say. It's also really considerate of the developers to include something like that.
Yeah, I mean the luck system in the Fallout games have always been kind of interesting.
I don't know if it's just me personally, but I'm not a very big fan of Bethesda games like Fallout or Skyrim because I know there's story in them, but the amount of distance I have to go through to get to that story is far too jarring on me, and it often makes me lose interest before I can get to the good bits.
Yeah, I've played like hundreds of hours of Skyrim and I haven't even chosen a side from the the Imperial or I'm nearly endgame and I haven't really beat half the story mode.
Yeah, see, I don't play Bethesda games for the storyline usually. I played them for the I mean, aside from Fallout 3, where I did really like the story, I usually play them for the world exploration and the finding a place and and seeing what's going on there. That's the interesting part of those games for me. If you want a more concentrated story, obviously an open world game isn't the best choice. But actually, the thing about the Fallout games, if you compare Fallout 3 to New Vegas, Fallout 3 had a more impactful story, but it did abandon a lot of the RPG elements that was part of the previous games with more factions, and more open choices. Whilst Fallout New Vegas went back more to the old way, where you had more factions and more options, but the story wasn't necessarily as personal or impactful in any way. And I mean, that's just a metaphor for the comparison between single player and not single player, between story-based and open world games, and the complexity of trying to put the two together.
I'd argue that Fallout New Vegas' story is quite personal. What with the deal with the Courier and Ulysses and whatnot, but I didn't.
It is true that it is more personal in the way that you actually choose it, but it is like, what's the word I'm looking for? I'm reluctant to use the word cinematic. What's the word I'm looking for? Thematic, so to speak. From a thematic level, the Fallout 3 storyline is much more like made to. If you're willing to let yourself get drawn in by the story, you can feel much more impactful than what the Fallout New Vegas one does. But if you have that urge to carve your own path, Fallout New Vegas will obviously appeal to you much more.
I suppose that's a fair enough point. But then I must have had just really bad luck with Bethesda games, because I played Skyrim for a long amount of time before I just ended up giving up on it, and I replayed it multiple times.
Oh yeah, I've given up on Skyrim twice as well. I mean, I've done a lot of exploration. I've gone around and looked at places and events. And then I do a part of the storyline, and at some point I'm like, do I care about any of these people and whether they'd live or die? No, not really. Whatever, I'll do something else.
See, my problem with Skyrim regarding its characters is that I know that it's an open world game, so it's going to happen, but the character models and the character voices get so repetitive after a while, and it makes you think, God, who's this again? Is this guy? Is it that guy? Does he really have that much personality compared to this other guy? And it's
have you tried Oblivion?
I have not.
In Oblivion, you can find a shopkeep talking to a copy of himself with the same voice, talking about how much they enjoy shopping from the store owned by themselves. And you can find two random people walking past each other in the street, awkwardly stop beside each other. They will turn. One of them will out of nowhere say, I saw a mud crab the other day. Vicious little beasts. And the other one will go, I agree. And then they walk off.
Well, that's absolutely natural.
The random conversation generation system, in the words of Yahtzee, it was a courageous act, but so is jumping into a skip full of used syringes.
Wasn't there a movie about that?
Oh God.
Now, if you think the NPCs in Skyrim are bad, the NPCs in Oblivion are like, by comparison, the Skyrim NPCs are fucking genius. They are so much more complex and so much more developed than the Oblivion ones.
Oh God.
Just look it up on YouTube, like Oblivion random NPC conversation, because I mean, at the end of the day, there are like a few conversation lines based on local places, and there's like 5 different lines that can occur at any place. And is it 5? It might be fewer. I can't remember, but like, you will hear the same lines so many times from people that are supposed to be different and yet aren't.
I suppose one thing I do like about Skyrim is that I don't know whether it's exclusive to like all the Elder Scrolls games, but if you mess with the guards in Skyrim, you are gonna die at lower levels at least. And it's like that's how I feel RPGs should be. Because in a lot of games I play, both D&D and otherwise, the guards are pitiful. That's the only thing I applaud Skyrim for.
Yeah.
Well,
Another thing about Oblivion
also
was the
think
fact that
they should.
sorry, go on.
Sorry. I think I agree. I mean, I'm running a city-based campaign right now, and I'm trying to make the guards a threat, but not that they are instantly killed by them. So I have a little difference. They have guards and they have militia. So the militia are okay. They might be able to handle them, but guards are off limits at the moment. So I think guards should be something. It is not like a random goon that has no skills. It should be a trained professional.
Well, yeah, because if they're
Yeah.
hard, then they need to be good at what they do.
Exactly.
But not as good as the Oblivion guards, though, if I may add one more other anecdote. Because the guards in Oblivion have fucking spider sense, and they are like the Terminator in that they can occur at any place, at any time, anywhere, and suddenly you hear, "Stop right there, criminal scum!" in the middle of the ocean with no boats or anything. They'll just suddenly be there. They'll come running from the fucking horizon and suddenly just run straight towards you as if they're like a heat-seeking missile.
Well, they are dedicated.
Yeah, they are dedicated to a fault. Like, I mean, I remember at one point I accidentally in Oblivion stepped onto someone else's horse, immediately stepped off, and I was pursued by gods ever since.
That reminds me of everyone's first incident with the chicken in Skyrim. And like the first town you get to, oh, chicken, let's see what happens. Guards everywhere. And everyone is trying to kill you.
Well, you are destroying someone else's property.
It's true, but I'd imagine it's a stray chicken.
I mean, it would have been more amusing if they went for the Zelda approach, but nah, wouldn't have fit.
Well, that reminds me kind of old World of Warcraft. I mean, I haven't played any of the new stuff, but in old World of Warcraft and vanilla, I guess. Man, these guards, they were
Yeah, they were a threat back then.
like classical one-hits. They just ran up to you sometimes absolutely randomly because the aggro range was quite bizarre sometimes on them.
Yeah, and in neutral zones, you might have accidentally clicked, intimidating shout or whatever as a warrior, and suddenly you're considered a hostile target because someone from the other faction happened to be too close when you click the shout ability. Because apparently shouting at someone is enough to get you killed.
That sounds reasonable.
Oh yeah, definitely.
World of Warcraft. I was initially quite excited when they put in PvP in that, and I had pictured, going and taking over quest zones and fighting off the guards and taking over Orgrimmar, and no. Those guards would not let that happen, no matter what.
No.
No, they were the best trained guards ever in the history of anything because they killed anything with one hit. So
3-week Alterac Valley matches, though.
Those were the days. Not great days, but days.
Pointless days.
I've actually been playing a bit on, if you've ever heard of Nostalrius. It's a private server, and it is pure vanilla World of Warcraft. There's nothing else to it. It's just pure vanilla World of Warcraft, maybe with some extra bug fixes. And it actually has a huge player base on that server, and they have a PvP and a PvE server. And what I've found myself doing when I play down there is that whenever I find something that is in the expansions but isn't in the vanilla, rather than being like, oh yeah, that's too bad, I'm like, oh vanilla, wow, you silly scamp, back in the old days.
Oh yes.
I mean, vanilla was fun at the time, but I wouldn't touch it anymore. I mean, it's so.
Yeah. It's similar to my earlier. I'm not sure if you were here then, but it's similar to my earlier argument I had about Super Mario 64. I worshipped that game as a kid, but nowadays I probably wouldn't be able to put my eyes on it for long or try to wrestle with the camera.
Oh,
Yeah,
that
well,
remote.
the controller limitations on that game are.
You'll never get the true experience of Mario 64 unless you're breaking parallel universes with an emulator. Oh, Scuttlebug. I don't know if it's just me who's heard about that, by the way. It was a thing a while back that some guy had managed to manipulate how the emulator works and the mechanics of the game in order to exist in like 4 different alternate universes, as he calls them, at the same time in order to get a star by doing a really unconventional means without jumping properly. He calls it half A jumps because he's never doing a full jump. He did it in I think it's 2.5 half A jumps. So that's not. He doesn't even do a whole jump throughout the process. It's really weird, and it's really not a good way to play the game because it took him 12 hours to do it because he had to build up speed in game to do it.
That just sounds bizarre.
It's very bizarre.
Sounds like a weird speedrun technique.
He ran a commentary about it, and it makes sense in the context, but when you look at it from an outside perspective, it's like, what made you think of this? But no, that was my experience with Mario 64, and the only true way to play it now.
Which way?
Actually, I hate you now, Victor, because I'm now playing Adventure Capitalist.
I am.
Damn you!
I am genuinely very sorry. I should never have mentioned that.
What'd you say, Andrew?
Well, I had to step out for a second. You said Mario 64 only way to play?
Oh, I was talking about Mario 64 play, which some guy did it in half A jumps and manipulated alternate universes to do it. It's really weird.
I found some of the alternate ways to play and beat games to be somewhat compelling, like Pacifist Skyrim, where you just like heal or fear or paralyze your way through the whole game. You don't kill anything, or like just a monumental effort. Same thing with Fallout. Just.
Well, have you seen the blind guy who beat Majora's Mask?
Oh God! Yeah.
There was a blind guy who beat one Legend of Zelda. It took him like 6 years, but he managed to play through the game. It was actually very cool.
That is dedication.
That's great.
Yeah. Put that man on a fucking pedestal.
Yeah.
Then play him a symphony because he can't see the pedestal. Sorry, that was rude of me. That was very rude of me. I should not have said that.
Oh dear.
I genuinely apologize to anyone who was offended by that.
I've somehow heard that before.
I don't think any of us.
There will always be someone who's offended. So don't
I
mean, yeah, but you can at least try to ensure that your intention was not one of malice.
I don't think any of us saw it coming.
Yeah, that's true, and that is a significant element of comedy. It's hard to make something funny without, pushing any buttons, because it's that shock. Laughter and humor is actually a reaction to absurdity. It's when the mind doesn't know what else to do or how to handle the situation that we sometimes turn to laughter.
That reminds me of a quote, but I can't remember by whom. It has something like, you can't do comedy without offending anyone or something like that.
That does sound very familiar, actually.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a Swedish comedian who said, like, if you can do no comedy that ever offends, then where are you gonna go? Oh well, do you think people invented Q-tips first or had wax in the air before that? And you just know that at some point. There. And you just know that at some point someone's going to go, that's insensitive! A friend of mine went deaf after using one of those. If you're going to stay completely okay, you're never going to be able to say anything. But, in my experience, in my opinion, as long as you can at least clarify that your intention is not it's not one of malice or ill will or spite or whatever, it should more or less be okay. Assuming you can. I mean, you can never truly account for the emotions of everyone everywhere, but at least your heart was in the right place.
Yeah.
No, go on.
I'm just wondering. Me personally, I don't even give too much of a flying hoot if the comedian has his heart at this right place and stuff like that. If he makes interesting and funny commentary about socially interesting stuff, then I don't care. He can.
That's a true point.
I mean,
Another
like, for
comedian
example,
once said that.
Life of
Sorry,
Brian,
go on.
Life of Brian was probably not that mean-spirited, but still, it probably came off to Christians as mean-spirited. So.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. Well, the
it's
interesting thing about Life of Brian is that they even in an early scene in that entire movie show that this is not the guy. Jesus is the one up on the hill, not the guy they actually show. And one of the things they try and put up is the fact that he is so misinterpreted. Not that he is. They don't say whether he's right or wrong. They just say that there's a lot of people misinterpreting him through various jokes, like when people are in the back are starting to shout to the people in front what he's saying, and things are getting stranger. Like it begins with him saying, "Blessed are the meek," and someone in the back yells, "What did he say?" And someone else says, "I think he said, blessed are the cheesemakers." And I mean, to some people that could be at the time, to some people that was offensive. But the point of it wasn't. The point of it was never to in any way question or validify the claim. It was to illuminate the fact that people misunderstand or misinterpret things.
And it's never a good idea to run a comedy bard build in any D&D system unless you are a professional comedian.
Yeah, and let's keep in mind that there's very different types of comedy. When it comes to D&D, there's the comedy that is based on reality that happens somehow in the game world, and there is comedy that is something funny that actually happens in the world that doesn't necessarily relate to reality. And the second type is the ones that work. The first type doesn't really work because in the end that just breaks the illusion, so to speak.
It's metagaming to some extent.
Yeah.
But I have at the moment I have a bard in my game who tells jokes, but the player is telling them in a way so that they are not funny. He's like the anti-comedian in a way.
Anti-jokes.
No, not necessarily anti-jokes, but he just tells them so badly and they are so out of context that he bores.
I have a friend like that. He makes tons of horrible puns. They would be funny if they would be in context. But you just throw them in and you're just like, what the hell did you just say?
Yeah. It's like exactly the same.
If I may go back on the topic of offense for a moment, I'm just curious, Andrew, for your streams and games and such, where do you put the bar on what is and isn't okay to say as a player? Just out of curiosity. what is there specific words, or is it the context?
More often than not, context is the most important thing. Like, I don't flatly think a word is bad in and of itself, but I do know that I get emails and comments every now and then. Thank you for having such a clean channel, kind of thing. And to me, I guess it just means I'm not actively seeking it out. I'm not actively like stopping myself from saying things I really want to say. It's just it doesn't come into my mind of cursing
One of the reasons why I asked this is because I have some ideas for my character. Having technically been a sailor long ago, there's a bunch of sayings that I'm tempted to use.
Oh,
But I
no.
want to know whether they are okay or not. We can take those later. We don't have to discuss them here.
Yeah. Run those by me later.
Yeah, and I mean, the character is a cleric, so he wouldn't just randomly say them.
Yeah, it's mostly about just doing what needs to be done to make sure that no one is feeling like, oh, like I gotta go now, or am I supposed to listen to this, or is this wrong? You know, we don't want to make people very uncomfortable unnecessarily.
Yeah, and I've always also personally felt that if you limit your curse words, if you limit limit your coarse language, it has all the more impact those times when it is appropriate to use it. If someone like the thing is, if you go around cursing like a sailor at all times, then no one will ever know when you're actually angry or actually, pissed off.
Right.
Because you always sound like you are.
See, what I feel works best with characters like that is when they're genuinely angry, you make them go quiet and don't say many things. So it's like that kind of silent anger sort of thing.
That's a good point. That's a very good point.
I've never ran I ran one character like it like a couple of years back, and since it was a couple of years back, I wasn't very good at it, but I figure it was a fine attempt, and I got the gist of it anyway. It was just the execution and the practice. I've seen other people play it. It's more difficult than it sounds, because the temptation's there, but yeah, in the context, and in the context of the character and the situation, it's, yeah.
Yeah, and there's also the whole thing of what is in certain cultures considered a term of endearment and in other cultures considered a very offensive term. Like in certain parts of Ireland, the C word is just considered a term of endearment.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there's a reason why I say the C word, and that's not because I personally find the word offensive, it's because I don't want to offend anyone listening.
See, I got
Capitalism?
Cats.
You'd be surprised how many times that word that is said about saying the C word.
communists.
Well, I technically live in what's called a social democracy, so I'm in between.
See, to add on to that, I've got an Australian friend, and he said to me that between Australians, the people who are friendly with each other refer to each other in rather unpleasant manners, but they take it all as a fine joke. When somebody calls someone else something like mate or whatever, it comes off as aggressive to them, because they're not using the typical,
It's about what's considered a term of endearment and what's considered an insult. And if you don't have any insults, what's not an insult, what's not a term of endearment suddenly can become an insult.
Yeah.
So you'll
Well,
just have to
mate
trust
can-
and listen
oh, sorry.
to. Sorry, you go ahead.
Yeah, well, mate is an interesting word because also in parts of England, if you're going at someone and at the bar, for example, and saying, like, if you have an angry conversation and you're going at him, you what, mate? And that's not something like, hey mate, let's chill out. That's something like,
Yeah.
you want to
Yeah.
go out of the bar and
What, mate?
No, mate.
You what, mate? You fucking
Exactly.
want some?
It's more common than you think.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, none of the words I just said were technically an insult or a curse word, but in the context, it becomes one.
Yeah.
Well, besides for the F word, of course. I forgot I used that.
See, Brits have a really funny thing with how they insult people. In fact, a lot of people do, but a lot of the time, if you're going to insult someone, occasionally people don't even use curse words for it, although a lot of people do because they're lower class. And that's a common thing among the lower class. I do it, my family does it, my friends do it, we're mid-lower class. People people who live in London and the better areas don't do it quite as often, but if you're not going to swear at someone, you often say something that sounds really silly in your head, but in the context of what you're saying, it comes off as really aggressive and insulting. I remember an incident where I was called a raspberry ripple by someone who was particularly annoyed at me, and it came off as really aggressive. A raspberry ripple.
Okay.
Whatever
And
that means.
It's a type of food. It's
Okay.
it's when I say it, it sounds silly, but in the context of the situation at the time, it was really aggressive, and it was
Another interesting thing I also find is that, I mean, in modern days, where in Sweden, curse words have tended to be more, more sexually based on like such and such terminology. But historically and classically, Swedish curse words have been very, very focused on sacrilege and naming Satan. Like our equivalent of the word fuck means devils.
Oh God.
And one of the reasons why this is so is because Sweden is one of the least religious and most secular places on the planet, if not the one.
I'd say the UK comes close at least. I mean, atheism is in the top 5 of the belief systems there.
Belief system is not necessarily the right term, but
I was gonna say.
standpoint in the questions of faith matters.
Yeah,
or whatever you want to use. Let's just say that for now.
Yeah, in regards to faith, atheism is on there, but a lot of atheists still use curse words like goddamn and things like that.
Yeah, and I mean that's because they're part of it. That's because you don't mean what they literally say.
Yeah.
It's an expression.
So like I remember it could like back in old days, back when England was more of a Protestant country, it would mean a lot more than it does today. But no, in the context of like D&D and the settings you're in, you've got to be, if you're going to play like a really like a guy who swears like a sailor or like an offensive comedic bard, you really got to figure out what's going to be offensive to the culture that you're talking to, or the person whose culture they're from, and of course where you come from. And
yeah, I mean, this reminds me of I can't remember in what game it was, but it might have been in Icewind Dale, but there's the spell Tasha's Hideous Laughter or something, and they added the element that spell might actually still exist, and they added the element that if the target you are casting this spell on, the spell basically makes the target laugh uncontrollably, and if the target you cast this spell on does not speak a language you speak, the effect is like halved because comedy doesn't translate well.
In what edition was that?
Icewind Dale is a game I think it was from. I'm not sure. It's not a tabletop. It's a game based on some form of tabletop. I think.
Second edition.
Sure.
And
second edition.
Still around. Yeah.
Yeah. I just find that such an interesting element to a spell.
I gotta jump off now. But if you guys want to stay here and keep talking, that's fine by me. I'll just.
Yeah. I mean, I should probably head to bed. It's 23:35 here, and I get up at 5. But Andrew, I will be asking you a bit about those sayings, and also about another idea I have. But we can take that tomorrow sometime.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah, I have some more details about my character background that I need to fill in.
I'll also be leaving, yeah. Sleep well. Sleep well,
Yeah.
fellas.
Sleep tight.
Well, gentlemen, good Nacht and
Gute Nacht.
good Nacht.
Guten Nacht.
Gute Nacht.
All that stuff. Good Nacht.
Good talking with you all. We'll talk again soon.
Yeah.